May the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the life force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive.
So hello everybody and welcome to May the Life Force be with you. And our intention for this episode is that you come away full of life force energy, full of love, and full of your own extraordinary power.
Ooh, goosebumps with that one. Thank you, Gorilla. And I know why you chose some of those words so widely there. And that is because of our guest today, who is Michael Gibson. And Michael is a podcaster, sex and happiness coach, and the co-founder of the Academy for Men. He is also the visionary behind the Extraordinary Lovers Experience and Retreat, a transformative course designed to elevate relationships from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Through his work, Michael empowers individuals and couples to achieve profound intimacy, lasting happiness, and sexual satisfaction. And Michael is also the husband of one of our fabulous previous guests, Laurie Handlers. So hello, Michael, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's beautiful. I really appreciate that. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And obviously I personally got so much from our conversation with Laurie around her just extraordinary love of life, first and foremost. And she did share with us a story about how you both met. I would love to hear from your perspective what that first meeting of Laurie was like.
She is a fireball. Like, what is it like to meet a woman like that?
Who just says, I'm standing in my feminine power. You ready for me? I think was something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I love telling that story. It's one of my favorite ways of reigniting that love, that passion that we have for each other. It's interesting, but when I met her, I was a network engineer. I was traveling the country, building out billion-dollar data centers for major corporations all around the country. And I was busy. I was in life. I was doing life. And I just moved back to Arizona from San Antonio, Texas, where I had built out for about 2 years a new data center for a company out there. And, I completed my contract, come back, and I reconnected with some friends who I hadn't seen in a while. And they invited me to a clothing optional dance party.
What do you do?
Let me let that sink in. It was my first time ever. Okay. I'd never been to anything like that before in my life. So there I am, and I'm standing at what I call the wine counter, just where the bottles of wine happen to be. And I'm standing there looking at my choices, and up walks this very well-dressed, very attractive, older woman. And I look over and hello, and she says hello, and I'm Michael, and hi, I'm Laurie, and what do you like? And I like this kind of wine. And we talked about wine for about a minute. And then, we nodded at each other and politely walked away from each other, and that was it. No attraction. I wasn't interested. She wasn't interested. In fact, there was this really cute blonde Russian gal who I was actually interested in. And that didn't work out, thankfully. And that was it. Fast forward 5 days, and my friends invite me to another event. And this time it's called a Turn On, and it was presented by some people from the One Taste community. And they were teaching orgasmic meditation. And when they described this to me, I went, wow, I can stroke a woman's clit for 15 minutes and give her the ride of her life. And that's a thing. And they said, yeah, come and check it out. So I go and I walk in the door and it's, by the way, it's in this bookstore that has this lovely wine bar down on Camelback and 3rd Avenue.
So, sorry, wind up. Like I've heard, I know of meditation and orgasmic meditation, and
Yes.
I've actually explored it, but like you did it in a bookstore, in a wine bar, like just go back.
Hold on. You're getting ahead of me. All right. So this was an introduction. This
Okay.
it was in a little room in the back of this wine bar where they had, several meeting rooms back there. And what they were doing was introducing the concept of orgasmic meditation.
So it was like a talk.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. You stroking women's vaginas for 15 minutes in a bookstore with a wine bar. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, right. My setup was perfect for this, right? So I want to learn them. I'm like, okay, I'll go. And so I go with them and I walk in the front door, and who's sitting in the first chair as I walk in? It's Laurie. And I look over and I go, oh, I remember you from the other night. And she goes, yeah, Laurie. Yeah, Michael. Oh, great. So in this one taste introduction to orgasmic meditation, what they do is they take you through the flow of orgasmic experience up to and including orgasm, and then the refraction period afterwards. But they do it by playing games without taking clothes off.
Okay.
And so the first game they play is called the hot seat, where they put you on a seat and they ask you questions. And I was like, okay. So I raised my hand. I was the first one to go up. I sat down in the hot seat and they asked the question, what do you want? And I thought for a moment and I said, well, I believe there's a goddess in every woman, and that's who I want to meet. And Laurie had this like physical reaction in her chair. And she raised her hand and she said, have you ever said that to anybody before? And I said, no, I hadn't, because I hadn't. So the night goes on and we go through the rest of the program. And at the end, I sign up because I'm in. I loved it. I thought it was great. And I'm just about to walk out that door and Laurie steps in front of me. And she says, excuse me. And I said, yeah. She says, I think you and I should go and have that glass of wine we talked about. And I go, really? Why is that? And she said, well, I am the goddess. And what you said made me a little wet. And I went.
She didn't tell us that bit.
I can't believe she didn't say that to you. Oh, yeah. She said she was wet. And I went, okay, let's go have a glass of wine. And that's where it started. That's where it all started. And I didn't know at the time that I was sitting at the bar with the world famous and, best-selling author and, award-winning filmmaker and all this, Laurie Handler. I had no idea who she was. None.
And do you think that had you known who she was, you would have had a different beginning?
Well, I'm sure of it. I'm sure if I knew who she was, I might have had a different agenda for our relating. And because I didn't know who she was, I really didn't know anything about Tantra, didn't know anything about the world of sacred sexuality or any of those things. So I was interested in sexuality at a very high level. And I was also diving deeper in my own knowledge of what does it take to create and generate really powerful, passionate experiences with a woman. And so I was doing that on my own, right? Like that was part of my life and my lifestyle. But when I met Laurie Handlers, I was not prepared for what I was about to encounter in life.
Can I ask, because you said that's where it all started, but I don't know many people, and I certainly don't know many men that are, because I work in I've worked a long time in the tech and the ad tech and that kind of data industry. And I never came across many men or people at the time that were like, in data centers, but then also spiritually minded and open at the same time. So I want to ask Michael, that you said, oh, that was the start of the journey, but I'm going to suggest that you were already on some kind of path when you were meant to meet Laurie. And so how had things kind of unlocked for you through that journey of being in the tech world and kind of data world and then moving back to Arizona? You were obviously on some kind of path.
Yeah, I have an engineer's mind. So, and what's interesting is you use the word spiritual, although I feel like I'm a spiritual being, I'm also an atheist. I don't believe in the gods I think most of those are myths. But when it comes to spirituality, I am clear that human beings have spiritual experiences. Now, I don't know how to attach that to a reality or a realm or a world or even a dimension. But
and so what would you describe as a spiritual experience?
The love of a father for his daughter, the experience you have when you listen to the most beautiful piece of music, when you encounter an experience of a human being doing something wonderful for another human being or another being in general. Like that experience that we all feel when we get that rush of, wow. That's an experience of spirituality for me. And it's connective. So I say that not to create a tangent, but to say that I wasn't on a spiritual journey at the time. What I was really doing was working on myself.
Well, a curiosity then, a curiosity of self, perhaps, rather than spiritual, and a curiosity for life and experiences, perhaps, rather than putting it into a defined bucket or path. I think the word curiosity is one of the most powerful because it can lead you in so many different directions.
That's great. Yeah.
And I'm actually curious. I was burning to ask about the meeting with Laurie. And I'm especially now interested to ask, now that I know you're atheist, was it fate? Like, do you feel like it was fate that you two were meant to meet twice? And
fate?
Yeah. Just asked an atheist about fate.
Yeah. I have an interesting relationship with coincidence, and I don't know how to explain it. Not believing in gods doesn't mean I don't believe in some strange phenomena. I definitely believe in strange phenomena. I'm skeptical, but I've had it every time you think about somebody and then you get the phone call or the text message. It's unexplainable. And yet it happens to me all the time. I call people into my life all the time just by thinking about them.
Me too.
So it's sort of like a superpower that I think we all have if we just used it more. I think it would be something we could develop as human beings. Maybe it's unique to human beings. I don't know. But that's a phenomenon. I can't explain it, but I believe in it. I know it works. I know it happens. So fate, maybe. Maybe Laurie and I, at that moment in our existence, were calling out for the other. Like our essence was saying, who is this person that I need to be with? Or who is this person who I desire to have in my life? And it was so random because I was dating and I'm a dom and I had subs and I was involved in my life. I had shit going on, when I met Laurie. And I was on a certain trajectory. And here's the funny thing. After Laurie and I sat down in that wine bar, having that glass of wine, we spoke for maybe 10 minutes at the most. And we had covered a lot of ground and who we were and what we were interested in. The things that we talked about weren't like bowling and do you like dancing? We talked about where have you done your work? Where have you spent money on yourself? Like on your own personal growth. Turns out we're both land Martians. We both went to Landmark. We both have done deep personal work on ourselves. We've both done, plant medicine. We're both interested in growth and personal growth and ongoing, never-ending Kaizen type growth. And so it was really a cool conversation. And within 5 or 10 minutes, I said, do you think we could date? And she looked at me and she said, yeah, I think we could date. She says, however, I do come with a warning, like a Surgeon General's warning on a pack of cigarettes. And I went, really? Okay, well, what's that? And she says, I will disrupt your life. Now think about who I was then and who I am now.
Wow.
She's truly disrupted my life. So I have a lot of gratitude, and I'm glad that if there is such a thing as fate, and there are 3 blind women spinning everything up, I have a lot of gratitude for those 3 ladies.
Now you're speaking Karila's language.
All right.
And so I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned in our kind of pre-podcast chat, and that was around a statement that you made around a fear, or I don't know if it is a fear, that this is something I've projected on to this, that couples are an endangered species.
Oh.
Which
feels
like quite a big statement, Michael. And you've just told us this beautiful story, which I have to say, there's like nothing sexier than meeting somebody that's working on themselves. Oh my God, yes. Yeah. Like I could feel that when you were talking. So you've come together in this beautiful way, that someone that's disrupted and changed your life, and there's deep love there. Yet you have this, I'm guessing, skeptical, or is it through your work that you're seeing evidence out there in the world today that we are not coming together as couples as often as humans as we used to?
Yeah, the problem, and it's true, that couples, they occur to us, Laurie and I, as an endangered species. We seem to see the same exact problem in most couples consistently across the board. And the result is, in those problems, when not dealt with, that couples, they separate. They no longer maintain the coupledom. So, rising divorce rates, 50% of all marriages end in divorce, 60% of all second marriages, 70% of all third marriages end in divorce. And we're just talking about people who actually made a commitment, who said to their partner in front of their friends and their family and everybody else, yes, I will be with you for my lifetime, or whatever they said. And they made vows. These are people who made vows, who have then divorced. What about the people who never made the vow, who are just couples? I wonder what those statistics look like. So couples are an endangered species. It's almost as if now people are saying it's better to be poly, it's better to be this, it's better to be that. I guess you're hedging your bets if you're poly, right? If one doesn't work out, you got 3 or 4 more.
I don't know, but is that happiness though, Michael? Isn't that 3 times?
I'll tell you what it's not, having tried it, is mainly it's a Google Calendar. Like, all I've worked out from Polly is a mathematical problem of trying to find the time. Like, it's a massive Google Calendar as far as I can work out in the one time I tried it. Because you're trying to work out, like, if you think of it, if you're in a relationship with somebody and with somebody else, and then your significant other is in another relationship, and you're trying to coordinate times to see each other, and there's 4, 5, 6 people involved, you've got to share Google Calendars. It's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It's a logistical nightmare. Think how time poor we are. Imagine when there's more than 2 people involved.
But what
as a full-time job, even I think it would be a full-time job to have to do that.
You have to have so much time to be poly. And actually, in Brighton, most of the people I know that are poly are in situations that mean that they're not working, so they have the time to be poly.
Wow. Well, we call it polyagony. We're not ashamed to say it. I don't know any. I know one person, and that's not everybody in their pod, but I know one person who's actually happy in a polyamorous situation. And then, and then there's all the other. So what works for human beings, I think, is whatever works for you personally, right? I don't want to say this across the board, but I feel like what works for people is that we have this commitment to one another, but non-monogamously. So although we're monogamous and we're committed to this one person, then every now and then there might be this opportunity for sensual or sexual exchange with another person that keeps things fresh and interesting. And I say, you can quote me on this one, I say everybody needs a little strange, right? Just a little something different. Now,
a flavoring of strange. I like it.
How do you do that, right? In a monogamous or in a committed relationship, and there are ways to do that. It's not that difficult, but their agreements can be set up. But how do you do that in such a way that you protect that commitment, and you can protect the commitment? So there are certain things that you can do. I'm not going to give a bunch of advice here. I'm going to say there are certain things that you can do that and have that be in your life. And if that's something that's outside of your ability to create compersion instead of jealousy, compersion meaning that the other person goes out and has a lovely experience with another person, and you feel in your heart this overwhelming, whelming love and joy because of their joy, because they're having the experience that they really, truly desired, and they're fulfilling themselves. That is compersion. Jealousy is, why aren't they doing that with me? Why can't we do that? How come I can't? How come you don't invite me to brunch? Well, you don't like brunch, honey.
So when I think about that, though, I wonder, and there's nothing wrong with this, that is us as individuals seeking out our pleasure. And it really isn't about being in a couple. And it just so happens that you're in a couple for that moment, that time, that reason, that season, whatever it is. But actually the lifetime part of it is how you are pleasing yourself. That's the most important thing. And actually, that would suggest that who you are with is not the most important part of that act, or is the most important part of your happiness. That's how I heard that.
If I had a bell right now that you could hear, I would ding it.
Oh, okay.
That's ding. Laurie uses the bell, and she's famous for it across the world, where she'll just hit the bell. And what that does is that anchors in that thought, right? It's an NLP thing, right? You're familiar. Yeah. So I would say ding on that statement. So true. So true. We're all working out our own happiness. This is this part of the spiritual journey, I guess you want to call it, of human beings, that we go through life and we start out, breathing air for the first time, thrown into these relationships with people we don't know, and probably some of them shouldn't trust, right? But you're thrown into a relationship. And then you go through that relationship, watching the relationships that are circling around you in your cosmos as you grow up. And then you get older and you start to take on cynicisms around these relationships and understandings. And there's certain ways to position yourself. And now we become a little sociopathic about how we are as human beings relating to one another. There's no school for relating.
No.
Where's the relationship schools? We're just thrown into it. It's like, learn by experience, which is a big way of learning. It's the hugest way we learn. However, we probably need some real functional training on how to relate to one another. What's important to you is important to me.
That's so beautiful. What is important to you is important to me. How many relationship dynamics lose that? And what's come into me is something that I haven't been thinking about from a relationship point of view, but I've been thinking about that there is this way of thinking and that I believe actually comes from colonialism that is like, I'm in experience with this, therefore I have it, and therefore I own it, and therefore it's mine. And what I'm playing with in my own life at the moment is that have is not hold. Because actually a lot of the things we try and say we have, like power or money or love, these are flows of energy, and you can't, you can't put your hand underwater and have it. Like, you can't. But you can actually hold it if you're prepared to hold the flow of it.
Mm.
And I think that what you've just described is a relationship that's willing to hold the flow of each other rather than have each other.
Yeah. That is a beautiful way to look at it. I would love to tease that out. Oh my gosh, we could spend an hour on that alone. Get me into my geekery and I'll start finding ones and zeros behind everything.
But I wanna actually ask, like, because
Well, Camilla, can I just take a pause on that? Because in vows, we say to have and to hold. Part of vows, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Look at
Wow. You got to get rid of the have. You got to get rid of the have in those vows. How can you
I wonder about possession, being part of it. I think we find ourselves as possessors of another person, right? It's like my girlfriend or my wife. And I used to have a real aversion to that. I told Laurie in the very beginning, don't call me your boyfriend because I'm not your anything. I'm a sovereign being. I'm a human. Okay. There's nobody who owns me. Add to the fact that I'm an atheist. I'm also an anarchist. I don't vote red or blue. I don't give a shit about all that political stuff because I feel like it's the same group of people just, selling us the same bill of goods, just labeled differently.
And so, trying to sell us having things, I might point out. Like the whole capitalism is based on the myth that you can have things.
That's true. And there's an energy. There's an energy to currency, right?
The flow.
Corilla, there's an energy to currency. That's the interesting thing about currency, money, and all this other. We could get into a really weird conversation about that, but let's keep it over. I think what's really funny is that my thought along this has us moving away from being so worried about what it is that we have and own, and more interested in who we are. Like who am I in this? How do I want to say this? Who am I in the matter? Who am I if I'm in a relationship called Laurie and Michael, who am I? Not just that I'm Michael. That's obvious. I mean, that's almost, I sound a little dumb to myself right now, but the reality is, who am I as Michael? So if you identify me as Michael, who am I? Am I the man who stands for his wife? Am I the man who is a protector and a provider and a lover? Am I a good lover? Am I a great lover? Am I interested in her goals and her desires? And am I upholding those desires? And who am I for her? Am I a backbone, or am I holding her back or pushing her away or holding her down? Who am I in the matter? That's what I'm interested in being. Not what do I have? I have a relationship. Do you really? And here's the interesting thing about it. I used to tell Laurie not to call me those things. But now that we're married, I have a very different view of that, where it's evolved to not only is she my wife, but not as a possession, but as a precious person who means the world to me. So she's not my wife in the sense that I own her, but she is my wife in the sense that I treasure her.
I feel like there's the shadow of possession, and then when you said treasure her, it's like that's the light, like the thing you run into the fire for, like the thing that the thing that you go, this comes first, like this I will face the fire for because it's so treasured.
Yes.
I want to ask you, because we know that you do a lot of work with men, and I feel like certainly in the UK, we're seeing about one man to every 20 women in these kind of self-help, self-development workshops. And I'm just wondering why you think that is.
Wow. Do I tell on the men? Do I just... What do I do here? Do I make every man my enemy in this moment? Or you've really got me in a spot here, Karila. Oh, you know, I wish I could understand that phenomena better. The hardest thing that I've had to do, and it's like it just hit me. You know, there's a part of me that weeps for men, because the culture that we have evolved from was a culture of very strong, very powerful, very capable human beings. And I don't mean the 40s or the 20s or the 1800s, or, I mean, back when we were hunter-gatherers, we were very capable. We survived. Like somehow our ancestors survived the not only the monotony, but the insanity of being in the environments that we were in. And what's interesting is I believe that back then, and there's a lot of evidence for it, that back then men were mostly hunters, women were mostly gatherers, but men were not just hunters. We were also called to be the guides of the tribe. So there were spiritual guides of the tribe. There were the shaman, who were mostly warriors. The shaman were warriors as well. They didn't just sit in the back with their crazy little mixtures and get really high all the time and try and figure things out they were actually warriors who were involved in the continued makeup of the tribe. And I think most of the warriors were at some level shaman. There wasn't one. There were multiples. And today, all we've been trained to do is to be hunters. So we've evolved from that, being hunters and shaman and powerful, loving, strong, responsible men, to hunters, to give me what I need, to give me what I want. And there's no development of the other thing. And I think that when men are learning something and they see that it has to do with, let's say, upgrading my communication skills, let's say it's upgrading my anything else, and it's not for the purpose of marketing or sales or building a business or being something bigger and better in the financial realms, that they tend to shy away from it. My experience. I did not go to Landmark because I thought that I was going to become a better communicator. I went to Landmark because my wife left me and I was lost and I didn't know what to do with my life at that point. And not only that, I was upgrading my business and I was finding new ways to market. And I thought all these 150 other people I might be able to market to and work with and do some things with in my industry. And I was right. I made some great... But that's one of the reasons I went, and the pain. So I think if you add pain to what men are going through right now, then they start to show up to these things. And then there's another group of men who show up to these things who are predators. Mm-hmm. And this is the shadow side of our community and our industry.
And What would you say, just because I know there are lots of people who are space holders that listen to this show, what would you say the best way to deal with a male predator is?
Wow. So I've got a friend named Misha, and he deals with this specifically. A male predator who is unknown can oftentimes be called forth if you can bring him into relationship with other brothers. Like if you can call him into the brotherhood, okay, and then you call him forth to maybe understand himself and what are his shadows and what is he dealing with and what is he trying to get. You can deal with it that way if they're willing to be part of the tribe. If they're not, then you have to call them out. And that's a very different process. And we have seen it happen in our industry and just in this small segment of human interaction, sacred sexuality, tantra, shamanism, all this other stuff. We've seen that happen a lot, and there's a lot of trauma that goes around, but we haven't really figured out how to deal with it in the call out phase. And so what we do is we cancel people and we end their careers. And I think in some cases that's actually correct, but in other cases we may need to step back and say, hold on, what happened here? And let's figure this out.
I feel like we don't, as a society, know how to deal with sexual shadow properly. Mm-hmm. And I actually don't think that cancelling, I don't know, it might be quite radical to say, but I feel like part of the reason we have such explosive problems with sexual shadow is because we have a society that just pushes it away and pushes it under the carpet and doesn't want to talk about the roots of it and where it's coming from and hold safe space for why people are performing trauma onto others. Because it is just trauma.
Yeah.
And yet we have such little compassion for it, especially when it's presented in a predatory way.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with that is that then people don't come forward, they don't talk about it, they suppress it. And every time you suppress, essentially you're going to create an eruption.
I think the number one tool, ding, by the way, and I think the number one tool of the predator, whether they consider this or not, is shame. The number one tool to hide their actions is shame. The threat of someone finding out that this happened to me puts me into a very unwilling space to share with anybody what happened to me. And it's devastating. My first sexual experience was being sexually molested by my older foster brother. I was 11 years old. And he forced me to suck his cock, and then he came in my mouth.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know what was going on, but he told me, if you don't do this, I'm going to beat you up. And he'd beat me up before. I'd been there a little while, and he'd beat me up before, and I knew what that was.
And I'm pretty sure that any young person that is abusing, or a child that is abusing another child, is doing so because they have been abused.
Ding.
And, like that, children, to a degree, they are sexual, they fight, and they learn to play sex and play fight as part of our animal development. But I think once it gets to the point of abuse, it's because they've had abuse and they have no way of expressing it other than passing it on.
Right.
And
that's exactly it. Yeah.
And I feel like our society the fact that it's manifesting in children is because we have such a suppressed society. We're not having, we're having this conversation, but we're not having these conversations around predatory trauma.
Yeah. The shame that I held on to until I was 44 years old. My first ISTA I went to I was 44 years old. I held on to that and was unable to communicate it. Now I can communicate it in a way and say, yeah, it was a terrible thing. I was there. It was a terrible thing. And yet at the same time, as I look back, I remember Jason's mother was horribly abusive to him. She was a prostitute from Canada. He was raised in that home with her lovers and her pimp. And and he was a foster kid as well until my foster father, Michael, he rescued him from that environment, but he still had all of the scars and damage and pain from having been treated the way he was treated growing up. He was 14 when he did what he did to me. Now, he was the perpetrator. I was the victim. No, there's no denying that. But I have a compassion for him now that I didn't have for him before I started doing work. Before I started doing work, it was, he's the reason that I can't have good relationships. He's the reason I fear men.
Because shame
creates shame.
Blame contracts.
And blame, that's exactly right. And that blame contract put the power over there.
Yeah, because blame is of giving your power away.
That's exactly right.
Shame is the feeling of being overpowered. Well, this is my shadow language, but shame is the feeling of being overpowered, which to our divine self, atheist, like our divinity, whatever that means for you, really struggles to cope with the feeling of being overpowered, because the nature of our divine is power. And so the way that we cope with being overpowered is we create blame contracts.
Yeah, I experienced that.
And I think we do this as a society. One of the things that I often think about is that, we are second, third, fourth generation of the First World War. And the First World War, there must have been sexual abuse in those trenches like you have never seen. Because all of these men were in a very traumatized situation without any women. And at different ages and under extreme trauma situations. And
for a very long time.
For a very long time and on the edge of life. And in extreme distortions of power. And so we have that generation come back into a society that decides not to talk about the war. And I think that a lot of the predatory abuse that we're talking about is intergenerational from that. And I think until we start talking about it and taking it into circle and taking it in to these conversations and men's work and sexual work, and it's just going to keep being inherited and passed down,
Yeah, I would agree with you with that. I feel like everything you just described is very much part of my evolution. And it's interesting that, once we have it, once we know it's there, whatever that is, that piece of shame, which we'll call shadow if you want, that thing that's in my background that I'm ashamed of, but I have it covered up by shadow. I won't allow anybody to look, and my shadow will protect it unconsciously, protect whatever that is. And but we found a freedom to it. There are ways to get free of that. And the simplest formula that I used to get free of my own personal shame was, the number one thing was to name it. Like I would say it. I would say, this happened to me. And then I named it. I was sexually abused as a child.
Why did that free you?
Well, because then I could get my power back from it. So once I say it, it's out there. Once I name it, I understand it. The naming of it gives it me understanding. I know what that is. Everybody knows what sexual abuse is. Okay. The third one is to take my power back. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not a survivor even. I've actually switched my thought process from being post-traumatic stress disorder to, I call it post-traumatic stress growth. The stressors that I experience in my trauma can allow me to grow. And when I use it to grow, holy crap, I expand.
And how do you claim the power back? Is it compassion?
Yeah, there's part of compassion. I have a 7-step process for freedom that I use.
Can you tell us it?
Is this what you do in your Academy for Men as well, Michael?
Can you tell us the 7 steps?
Oh, I can. Yeah, I can. And I probably need to reserve that for another time to really go into it. There's 7 steps, really. Forgiveness is the first step. The second step is acceptance. The third step is gratitude. The fourth step is treasure, or I'm sorry, honoring the gift of forgiveness. The fifth step is treasuring that gift, right? The sixth step is to place it. So you place the gift of your forgiveness in some place in your psyche, okay? And then the final one is to take action. And taking action simply means if you ever feel guilt for that thing, whatever that thing is, or that shame, that you go back to forgiveness, go back to step 1. And the other action that you can take is you can look at yourself and go, what are some things that I need to put in place in my life to make sure that that never happens again? So, I'm not going to, I'll send you this stuff if you want, but that's essentially it. But it starts with, I think if nothing else, even if you don't know these things, these other 7 things that I call the path to freedom, if you don't know those things, it doesn't matter. If you just start with saying it and then naming it and then take your power back. So there's a declaration at the end of that. The first part, say it. What is it that's bothering you? What is it that has you feel shame? What part of your life didn't go well? That was your responsibility. It's like your fault. What part of that did you do wrong? Just say it and then name it. I was a young idiot. Or, in my situation with my brother, it was that I was terrified. I was a coward. I felt so afraid that he was going to beat me up again if I didn't do this thing. And so being that, I said, okay, well, am I a coward now? No. He and I would have been in a big fist fight. It would have been a bad situation for him. So now I can look at that and go, wow, that's not who I am anymore. Yeah, it happened to me when I was a child and I was young and I was scared and I was going through stuff, but not anymore. And I have some freedom around that. But then, if you want to add the other 7 and you want some freedom from guilt and shame, absolutely, we can go through that. I've got a meditation that I put together some years ago that I also offer to not only our couples and our Extraordinary Lovers Experience work, but also in my Academy for Men.
I was going to ask you about your Academy for Men, and thank you for sharing all of that with us. What Karila was saying that it's hard to get men to come to sessions and come to Circle, and with only 1 in 20 kind of seeking out currently support. What is it that the Academy for Men represents, and what your your intention is behind it to get men to kind of come and sit together, if that indeed is what it is for.
I love the question. Thank you. And I'm moving some energy right now for myself because this is a really deep conversation. Laurie Handlers is the creator, or she is the mind behind the Academy for Men. Her after the first or second time we made love, I think it was the first time we made love, Laurie said to me, as we're kind of in the glow and the refractive period of our orgasm, she says to me, "Wow, where did you learn to touch a woman like that?" And I said, "Oh, I Googled it."
If only it was that easy. Is it that easy?
Do you know you can Google it, guys?
Yeah. I found stuff on Google. Yeah, of course. It's everywhere. What are you talking about? She's like, wow. She told me that she's been in Tantra for 25 years at the time. And she said, I've never had a man touch me like that. I know lots of high level, very well trained tantric Tantra men. And she said, none of them. They can eye gaze, they can move energy, blah, 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 but none of them touched me like you touched me. And I said, wow, okay. And she said, you fucked me like you meant it. And I said, well, I did. And she was like, wow, you need to teach this to men. And I went, I kind of double looked at her and said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, I have this idea called the Academy for Men. It's where women like me who are a little older teach younger men how to be lovers, and then they go and make love to younger women. And I'm like, I like this. This is a good idea, actually.
It makes sense when
It
you
makes
think about it.
It makes sense.
It was her idea.
So what happens at the Academy for Men? I need to know so I can send some people your way.
Well, we started out with a 6-week program called Just Add Skill. So this is our primary program for men. It's called Just Add Skill because, in our opinion, what men have are skills. Most men have basic skills. And so they know how, they know slot B is for, tab A. They know how to put penis into a vagina. They know how to kiss. They know how to lick and all these other things. What they don't understand is how a woman's body works and how pleasure works. And they don't understand how to connect different erogenous zones and pleasure centers in order to be able to combine and compress those experiences of pleasure for a woman. And also they don't know how to follow the woman's body up and down, up and down, up and down until they can bring them to orgasm, multiple orgasm, and all the other things that a woman's body can do. So most men are not even trained in how to see when a woman's body tells them, I like this, not that. So that's what goes on in the Just Add Skill program. It's our phase 1 first program. And we teach everything from, let me just say it this way. When I say just add skill, I'm not talking about the skills that most men think they need, like how to make a woman squirt, how to make her orgasm, or, how to get her into bed even. That's not that. In 2017, I did a survey of 300 men and women, and I asked them, of all the times you've ever had sex, now this is for you to put on your math caps, right? Start thinking math. Of all the times you've ever had sex, what percentage would you say was a level 10? So I'll let that bake for a moment. Out of all those times, the men came back and said it was about 30%, high 20s.
Bet the women didn't say that.
Hold on. Almost, you're getting ahead of me, Prilla. Almost 30%. That's what men said. The women came back and said, you ready for this? 2%.
That's actually higher than I was going for. So yeah.
Yeah, you would have been on the lower end, right? So out of all the times you've had sex, if women are saying 2%, men are saying 30%, then something's off.
Yeah.
And immediately I thought to myself, I had this hypothesis, maybe we men aren't doing as well as we think we are.
No shit.
No shit. So what needs to be inside of this thing we're going to call a level 10 experience? Like, what's important? What ingredients need to be part of this level 10 experience? And I asked the women, I did a separate survey of another 100 women. And all this stuff I could probably hand over to that famous TV show. Survey says, right? Anyway, Family Feud. Anyway, I asked 100 women. I said, "Okay, what's it take? What's this going to take?" And I came back with a top 5 that women said. The number one thing women said were needed this is number 1. Ready?
Drum roll.
Presence.
Yes.
Number 1 was presence. Number 2.
And by the way,
safety.
that's not gifts for anybody that's listening. I'm just going to make that clear. This is not about the 5 languages of love and you're thinking gifts. We're talking about being present. Right?
Being present.
Right. Just clarifying.
No.
No, gifts, no. Yeah.
No.
The worst kind of sex is unpresent sex.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So presence is how you bring energy into the sex.
Connection.
Yes. Well, let me finish the top 5, okay? And you tell me if you agree with it. If you agree with them, great. If you don't agree with them, let's peel them apart, okay? So, the first one is presence. The second one was safety. The third one, connection. Number 4 was communication. And then number 5, it made the list, sexual skill. It made the list. What do you think men think is the most important thing in having a level 10 sexual experience for women?
Probably the reverse order.
Skill.
I would argue that skill comes from listening because everybody is different. So what skill is to one person's body, like somebody else might not like it. So I would argue that without presence, skill is not very helpful.
Almost useless. Let me ask you two, have you ever had a lover who did this thing and the first time they did it, it was fantastic. It was like, wow, that's amazing. I like that. And then the next time you were together, they did it again and you were like, it wasn't so great this time. Your body changed. Your mental, something changed. Your chemistry, any number of things could have changed. Your cycle in your, right, everything, all kinds of things changed so that your body doesn't receive touch the same way. A man who's present will see that. They'll notice it. They'll say, this isn't getting you anywhere. Hey, what do you really want? How can I touch your body next? And so we change that for that specific moment because every woman is different and every time you're with that woman is different.
And, it's so, May the Life Force Be With You is amazing to me because it is always so paralleling with my life and my own journey. And actually,
oh my God, Carilla, you're not about to tell me you've met a man. That would be a really interesting parallel universe.
I didn't know how to do present. Like you've just described lesbian sex. It could be called the Lesbian Academy for Men.
I don't want to offend anybody, but I am a lesbian.
You know why we know how to do presence, though, is because in lesbian sex, it has to be more present. Like there is less mechanical skill in lesbian sex. And so you have to learn how to be energetic and listen because it's less obvious.
Mm.
You know, that's why, like I said, it could be called the Lesbian Academy for Men, but there we go.
Well, the subtleties, yeah, unfortunately, men can't be lesbians, but we would, you know, we're okay with being with lesbians. So, so, so allow me to say this about that, that where there, like, just like there is no training in relating, there is no school for relating apart from the one that we built and the one that we're creating and generating, you know, in our own world here now. Men don't have a school or a training for presence, but we can be present, incredibly present. It's almost like it's a DNA thing, like it's built in, because when we were hunters, you know, it was us that would go out and find the tracks and the trail, and then we would follow the trail, and we were constantly looking and seeing, you know, did they eat off of this little tree right here? Did they, you know, oh, wow, there's some feces over here. That's the animal. Let's go find it. And then we go find the animal, and then we have our spears, and the animal is standing there munching and whatever. And we gauge it, like how far away, how hard do I have to throw the spear to get to the end? Like that's all focus, that's all presence. And then we make a noise, and oh shit, the animal takes off, bam, it's gone. And now we have to not only gauge how far to the animal, but how fast and how far in front of the animal we have to throw. You see what I'm saying? This is all happening in a man's brain.
You see what you're saying, and also. Yeah. You know, we live in a society now that really does the opposite of training our presence. That really we live in a society that's like teaching us to not be present, that's teaching us to be bad lovers, people. Rolling makes you a bad lover.
Yeah.
Because we're becoming less and less present. Mm-hmm. In society. And yeah, where my life took me in the last couple of weeks, there was some guidance that came through around presence, and it was so beautiful. It was about saying that how you charge your body of love, how you charge your heart, how you charge all things to do with the body of love is presence. So presence is like plugging your phone in, but it's plugging your love in. And it, you know, what kills most relationships is when the presence goes.
Yeah. Ding.
Because you stop charging up the love.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want to bring love into anything, you gotta be present.
Do you want to hear my ironclad way to become present?
Yes. Yes.
We do.
The instant presence. If you've ever wondered, how do I become present, right? Well, I think the fastest, it's automatic. It's immediate and automatic, and it's the most beautiful way to actually achieve presence. And that is to generate. This is something you have to generate in your own self. Generate gratitude. There's no faster way, in my opinion, no better way to become present than to generate gratitude. So let me give you an example. I'm drinking a cup of coffee right here. Typically, when I drink my coffee, I just drink it. But what if I add gratitude to this next sip? Thanking not only the process by which we get coffee, but also the water. Be really grateful for the water that was needed and necessary and available for this cup of coffee, and also for the hands that did the processing and moved this product to the place where I could go and find it in the store, including the hands that placed it on the shelf, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things I start to really hold gratitude in my heart for. And I'm like, wow, it's a miracle that I'm going to be able to sip this cup of coffee. See the shift? It's so simple. And now I'm present. I'm looking into the screen and I see these two beautiful women who are smiling at me. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm actually getting to share some of my own thoughts and values and reflections. And you're listening to me. Welcome to my life. Wow. What a beautiful experience this is. That right there, just taking the moment to slow down, step into your now. I love the book, The Power of No. I can't listen to the man speak, but I love the book. Puts me to sleep every time. But The Power of Now is one of the greatest books in our time. And that's what happens when you apply gratitude to anything. You become present instantly. Imagine sitting in front of this naked, willing, beautiful, sensual woman and applying gratitude.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm very grateful for this conversation today, and I'm going to carry this for the rest of my day for sure. And oh my gosh, Michael, could talk to you for hours. Literally, I feel like it was such a beautiful conversation. I'm so very grateful for your time and everything that you shared deeply with us. I think everybody listening will really have felt that as well. And so much guidance and wisdom in there that people can take something away from. Just think about your coffee in the morning, guys, when you're listening to this podcast.
Like it's a naked woman.
Like it's a naked woman.
Sip it like it's a naked woman. This is the key.
Karila's now adding layers onto your simple gratitude, Michael. There we go. Karila, over to you.
I am so grateful, Michael, that you grew so powerfully and beautifully out of that trauma that you shared so freely about. And thank you for growing out of your trauma into this brilliant work that you are now doing that is so important. And I have 2 questions for you.
I told you she always has an extra one.
The first one, and we've already asked your lovely wife, and it does sound like she's the boss, and she already said yes. But we have a Life Force Cafe, which is the subscription service for the podcast where people go deeper with our speakers, and we would love to have you and Laurie on there together.
We're going to invite lots of men.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes, I think that would be amazing. Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you. And the next question is, who should we have on May the Life Force be with you next?
Oh, that is a good question. Somebody has popped up into my consciousness that I really enjoy listening to. And her name is Lucilla. She's from Argentina. She's actually in our apprentice program, and she's fabulous. She's brilliant. And she's Argentinian. And she's fascinating. She is she is a therapist, a psychotherapist in Mendoza, Argentina, and ran across her through some things that we did. And I've been coaching her, and she's brilliant. She's really, really, I think she'd be a great fit for this podcast.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great.
Will you introduce us?
Yeah.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you again. And send our love to Laurie as well. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Karila.
May the Life Force and the love and the coffee that's a naked woman be with you all.
So we're just going to rename the podcast "May Michael Gibson Always Be With You," because
especially in bed.
I mean, that's not where I was going to go with that, but I'm hearing you because let's just be honest, like how completely, like, so deeply attractive to have someone that is so open, present, connected to themselves, and just the utter love and joy that means that he can share that with Laurie. Like, it's so attractive, isn't it? And like, I want that love.
I want that love.
We all want that love.
We all want that love. And also I want to be that person. Like, I want to be that present. I mean, he is embodying,
you know what,
everything we talk about on May the Life Force Be With You. Like, you could put all of the episodes into Michael. Like,
seriously, this is exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, like, yes, I want us all to be like Michael. And I feel like doing these, I think it's now 75 episodes, probably by the time this one comes out, I feel like I am becoming more of that. I feel like everything that he talked about, I can feel it. I can sense it. I want to be it. I want to live it. I want to share it. And this is what this podcast and everybody we have spoken to has done for me. I know it's done the same for you. I really hope it's doing the same for our listeners, because God, it feels good.
Feels so good. And just, it's, yes, he was talking about being a good lover and a good husband, but then he was also talking about such vulnerable stuff with so much power. Because presence is also power. Like, it's so rare to see somebody truly in their sacred masculine. And he is.
Oh, yeah. Without, I don't want to use it. It's a shadow of a doubt. I don't bring a shadow into it. Funny that phrase, isn't it? Isn't that funny? But yeah, he definitely embodies all of that. And I think we just kept on pressing record, because even after our podcast conversation with him, he just had so much wisdom and insight. And then, the last little piece we talked about, Life Force, we didn't even record, which is such a shame. So we will definitely have Laurie and Michael together on the Life Force Cafe. Holy shit balls, that'll be amazing.
Oh my God, they're going to blow the cafe open.
They are. It's
going to be amazing.
I feel like we need a half day for that one, because it's just so intensely thoughtful and heartfelt and true, everything that they do.
Fun. Like, on top of all of that, like, he laughed so much, and we were cracking so many jokes, and there was such free flow of energy.
Yeah. Well, as ever, I am very grateful to our guest for our conversation, and to you, and for this space that we hold to have these conversations.
And if you are grateful, listeners, please spread the word. Share the podcast, comment, like, help us get more people to listen to these amazing people and this podcast.
And you know what else, Karila? I'm also going to say, and if there's anything else that we haven't covered, or areas that are deeply interesting to you, I mean, we've covered a lot, but we don't know everything, right? So drop us a line. Like, we are open to all conversations. So thank you, and may the Life Force be with you the rest of the day, Karila.
Thank you, Fiona. You're amazing.
Mwah.
We hope this conversation has topped up your Life Force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the Life Force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the Life Force be with all of us.